everyone. A very, very warm welcome to each one of you today. We're very delighted to have all of you with us for the first Forbes India Leadership Circuit, which is an exclusive gathering of visionaries and decision makers shaping India's next big leap. At Forbes India, we've spent the last 16 years chronicling the journeys of the leaders who've built, disrupted, and redefined the rules of business. With the leadership circuit, we take that mission further, bringing change makers together in the same room to spark conversations that lead to real outcomes. This isn't a typical conference because it's a focused, closed door exchange of ideas among people who are not just building companies but building the future. And there's no better place to start than Bengaluru, India's startup capital and AI innovation hub. With over 7,000 startups and a deeply digital mindset, the city is tackling some of India's most complex challenges, from healthcare and mobility to skilling and financial inclusion. Today's sessions aim to unlock sharp perspectives across growth, inclusion, capital, and innovation. Before we get into the groove of these sessions, let me invite MVS Murthy, Vice President and CMO, Federal Bank, to share his perspective on FILA and the very first leadership circuit that we launch here today in Nama, Bengaluru, with our esteemed and long-standing partner, Federal Bank. Please put your hands together for MVS Murthy.
It's a very proud moment for us at Federal Bank because of the Forbes India Leadership Awards. The leadership circuit is a part of those awards for the next 3 years. When it comes to this particular event, we are also at the cusp of India becoming a $7 trillion economy in the next 5 years and a $30 trillion economy by 2047. So in the midst of an Atmanirbhar and Vikasit Bharat, I think it's a great moment in time for us to kick off this session. And without much ado, I'd like to call on our next set of speakers and panelists. And I'd request you all to enjoy the session and look at the ideas which are going to power the Viksit Bharat story. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Murthy. We now commence with the very first session that brings to spotlight the crucial aspects of energy transition, infrastructure, and policy innovation that will be defining pillars of India's growth story in the coming times. I request Chandra Shrikant of Money Control to take this conversation ahead. And joining us is Gaurav Gupta, Additional Chief Secretary, Energy and Water Resources, Government of Karnataka.
To people in Bangalore and Karnataka, Gaurav Gupta needs no introduction because he's pretty much served in all key departments, from commerce and industry to IT to biotech to science to infra to power to urban development to transport. And he's now the additional chief secretary for the state in charge of energy and water resources. So you've sort of seen it all departments. There's nothing that you cannot talk about. So I hope you will be candid with us today on Bengaluru's potential as an innovation economy, what's holding it back, what the government can do in the process. Let me begin with a macro question. As things stand today, how do you assess Bangalore's preparedness, especially at a time when the competitive intensity among the southern states is going up? How does Bangalore stand out?
Well, we'll start with thanking you and wishing all the best for the Forbes interaction.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for making it.
Yeah. And let me also say that Bangalore has always been an innovation hub and will always remain an innovation hub. And the kind of innovation across various sectors that we have seen, across various geographical footprints around Bangalore, we have seen is unparalleled. You have innovation districts, innovation quarters at several other cities, but they are smaller and they are confined to few sectors. But Bangalore is all-encompassing, and that's the reason why the best of the people flock to Bangalore and remain in Bangalore, because they can get the connect with all the people around the world, and the entire ecosystem is theirs. So I would say that Bangalore is geared up for the next level of innovations as well, with the government and the industry working in tandem.
Right. We did a story earlier today on how the Andhra Pradesh government is giving land to Cognizant at a rate of 1 rupee to set up in Vizag. And they're obviously looking at the long-term potential here in terms of investments and jobs. How does one compete with that? There's a neighboring state with an ambitious CM who's rebuilding an entire state, who's giving away land at 1 rupee. How can you compete with that?
Well, I'm sure that if people want cheaper lands can be given in even in Karnataka as well. But I think what people want is really their businesses to succeed, and some of them do require a lot of land. But I would say a lot of them perhaps do not need to buy land in terms of innovation, startups, and the kind of things which Bangalore is known for. And so therefore, yes, Bangalore land prices may be higher, but it doesn't take away from the value that Bangalore brings to the table.
Right. And this catchphrase beyond Bengaluru is something that we have been hearing from the state government for many years now. Have we succeeded in building beyond Bengaluru?
Well, I would say that over the years, I have seen very many cities emerging in Karnataka beyond Bangalore. Say, for example, Belgaum has emerged a very major center nowadays.
In fact, it's a big hub for acres,
Yes.
which is a
Yes,
manufacturing.
ACUS is doing manufacturing there. ACUS is also doing manufacturing in Hubli and in Koppal.
Where a toy setup is coming up.
Yes, and Koppal is also a major hub for steel as well as for related industries, cement and others. We have other centers as well. Mangalore has always been a hub for education, and we have also been augmenting the airport connectivity across tier 2 cities so that people can find it easy to travel. So there are 9 airports in the state and with regular flights. So that is also helping. Mysore, for example, is emerging as a very major center. We are upgrading the airport as well. It is going to emerge as an electronic manufacturing center, as also wellness and spiritual hub, as we know Mysore to be, as well as heritage tourism. So there is prosperity and growth all across Karnataka, and I'm sure that people will find their pick when they are looking at opportunities. Say, for example, Tata has a major center around Dharwad, where they have been manufacturing vehicles, EVs, and a number of other things. So Tumkur again has emerged. Tumkur and Vasant Narsapura very recently has emerged as a major center, a growth center for all kinds of new industries. And a lot of Japanese and international investments as well. So I am absolutely confident that we have a lot to offer to people across the state.
Right. I was talking to an industrialist this week, and he had this, very interesting estimate. He said that, people, I mean, Bangalore as a city faces productivity loss running into hundreds of millions of dollars because of traffic. So, he gave a calculation of billable hours, and, if you take $45 per hour or $55 per hour, he said we are losing so much because the traffic gridlock is so bad in Bangalore. And this person lives in Bellandur. So he said, Chandra, this stretch of Bellandur to ORR, that constitutes 15% of the world's code that's being written. And possibly, the tax payment in that location will be among the highest in the country. Why are we not able to provide 101 things before we go on to more ambitious projects?
Yeah, so Bangalore has always been growing very fast, very big. And as you said, Bellandur area particularly has been the center of a lot of code writing, a lot of tech companies in that area. In fact, we have offered companies to shift out of Bellandur that, look here, we'll give you a land near the airport with better connectivity. And they said, no, you advise it to somebody else. We will remain there only because that's where the talent lies. And that's where people have been working. So it has developed as a hub. And perhaps that's the reason why more and more people are flocking in and there's more and more traffic. Government is doing quite a lot. Government is doing quite a lot in augmenting. Bellandur area, if we talk about, metro work is in the advanced stages of construction. And we hope and believe that both the Whitefield Metro as well as the Outer Ring Road Metro will help a great deal in evacuating people from that area. But Bangalore is growing beyond. Sarjapur Road, for example, almost till Tamil Nadu border, we have seen growth. So Uh, I remember 30 years back, people, even Marthali appeared to be very, very far off. There was no bridge across the railway
It's
line.
still far from here.
So there have been a lot of infrastructure additions, but I'm sure that Bangalore is growing so fast, and I'm sure that in spite of the constraints, people find ways. I also
So
catch
this
up
is
on all my
sounding like,
phone calls.
spirit of Mumbai. Despite everything, people will,
Yeah, that's
grind their teeth and carry on.
no, but
Huh.
I will take examples across the world. I was in Wembley in London almost 5, 10 years back, and we had to travel to Wimbledon, which is both of them are in London, and it took us almost 2.5 hours. Talk about San Francisco, from there to Cupertino, 101 being blocked, took us almost 2 hours. So what I'm saying is not that we have to copy or emulate them, but what I'm saying is wherever there is a lot of growth, wherever there is a lot of innovation, wherever people are flocking in large numbers, wherever the mightiest of the companies are opening their best of the offices, there will be more congestion. And that's what is in the city center of London. That's what is in New York City. That's what in San Francisco.
Right. GCCs or global capability centers have emerged as an engine of job creation. Um, and Bangalore, of course, has its share of GCCs, but Hyderabad seems to be taking away some of Bangalore's share when it comes to GCCs. Does this worry you at some level? Because GCCs, Karnataka, I think, was the first state to actually come up with a GCC policy.
I would say that there's a lot of room to grow. There are a lot of GCCs which are yet to be established or which have a potential of growth. Hyderabad may be doing something right, and I'm sure that there are lessons to be learned from there. But I'm sure that there are new GCC centers that are emerging. For example, the Manita Tech Park, which has been emerging on the Hebal side, has seen a lot of GCCs coming there. Nowadays, there are GCCs that are coming nearby the airport, and a lot of people are investing in real estate projects there as well. And new centers will emerge as there is a lot of demand. Still, I hold that Bangalore is head and shoulders above the rest, but others are also needed. I think entire India has to grow and would grow.
Right. In terms of new industries and innovation, if you look at Ather, Ola, they are Bangalore-based companies. The founders stay here, but their factories have come up in Hosur, and now Tamil Nadu is very keen to build an airport in Hosur. How worried are you about that?
Again, I think there is room for growth. When Ola and a number of other companies wanted to set up centers, they were looking at Bangalore. But there were two factors, which one was cheaper land, because EVs do require a lot of lands. And the second was the pool of talented workforce. And maybe other cost factors. Cost factors are very, very important. So while their high-tech research centers are in Bangalore, in Electronic City, and a number of other places, but the large areas that require large lands have moved to the neighboring state. And the entire ecosystem still is driven out of Bangalore, and the innovators sit out of Bangalore. A lot of deals, the kind of, the interactions across players, it may be financiers, it may be the sales, it may be other things, will be driven out of Bangalore. So I'm sure that just like Singapore may become high cost, but still people will work out of Singapore. They may do some manufacturing somewhere else, but they will again come back to Singapore. Like that, I'm sure that Bangalore will continue to remain its edge.
Let's talk about semiconductors and data centers, again, two emerging areas. Many states are looking at attracting investments in these areas. As someone who leads the power and water portfolio, how prepared are we? Because, these are major guzzlers of water and power. What's the roadmap? What's the policy there?
Yeah, we have had a lot of discussions on this, and also there are a number of task forces that are working on this. Within the KIDB, which is the important agency to provide industrial land, there has a lot of lands are being given to Foxconn and the center around it on the northern part of the city. Um, to that, to cater to that, and to the nearby growth in that sector around the airport. We are augmenting the entire electrical grid in terms of 400 kV stations and downstream and upstream stations. We are also looking at how we can get more water, additional water in that area. You know that these areas are far beyond Bangalore. You also know that Bangalore itself gets water from River Kaveri almost 100 kilometers away, pumping over 1,000 feet. So it's not really a city which is on a river. But still, considering the need and necessity, there is a proposal, and these are a lot of fleshing out of details, etc., which has happened to provide for additional water as well as additional power for the entire area. We know that data centers are guzzler. We know that there will be a lot of other power-intensive industries that will come. And we would like to assure that we are all geared up for that.
Right. Let's talk about AI, because how can we not talk about AI when we're talking about innovation? I think Karnataka also has been at the forefront of setting up a department that will look at how various government agencies can use AI. How do you use AI? How is your department looking at AI?
Managing the grid is also quite a complex task. We have been talking about smart grids across all countries, namely, say, for example, Germany and Europe and Spain. You have heard of the electrical outages that happened in Spain some time back. That was because of, the high renewables that were injected into the grid, and somehow or the other, they could not be managed. So, likewise, we also have to anticipate three things in the electrical side. One, we have to anticipate what will be the load at that point of time. Load means how much power people will use. The second thing is how much generation will be there at any point of time. Why? Because power cannot be stored. So if there is a momentarily more power generated thanks to solar, or there's a loss of generation because of loss of wind, in that case, we need to anticipate that. And the third thing is how much power availability in the market and at what rates. So all these things require a lot of forecasting and near forecasting, 1 day, moment ahead, 1 hour ahead, or that real time. And all of this we have been using AI and other tools to assess what the things would be. It will be based on past pattern, it will be based on the weather, it will be based on a number of other parameters. And we are actively involving all tools. And I am sure that the companies that will do very well in this will do very well across India and across the world.
How are you personally using AI?
Well, we need to master the AI tools in order to best our output. And ChatGPT and others are, I think, pretty standard nowadays, a number of others. And I do definitely use them.
Right. Final question to the VCs, founders in the room. What would your message be to them in terms of, how Bangalore can continue to shine when it comes to leadership, innovation, despite all its infra issues, despite, neighboring states that are increasingly ambitious? What would your message be to them?
I would say that Bangalore thrives in the collaborative ecosystem. And it's always the industry, the research, the startups, and the government, they're working in tandem with each other. There are a number of forums that have been created by the government and also by the industry as well. And I see a lot of energy in them. I see a lot of interactions in them. I see a lot of financiers across the world coming here and investing money. I see a lot of exchange of, what is the pinch points, what are the pain points, what needs to be done. I'm sure that this kind of healthy interactions will go a long way to identifying the needs of where we need to intervene and also to address them.
Right. On that note, thank you very much, sir, for talking to us.
We are here today to talk with people who are literally powering Bangalore's startup ecosystem, like Chandra rightly mentioned, with the big checks. So we're hoping to, in this session, get your perspective and better understand your investment strategies and some of the trends that are, sort of very popular, particularly in Bangalore's startup ecosystem. So thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm going to start with a very open-ended question. essentially, Bangalore has, over the past many years, and like I mentioned in my intro as well, been known to be a tech capital, right? So tell us about some emerging sort of sectors that are coming up that are beyond tech and SaaS. Nritya, I'd like to start this conversation with you.
Thank you. Just wanted to give a bit more context for
Please.
why Bangalore continues to have that edge. I think
Yes.
we have some of the highest density of the best educational institutions in the country. We have the largest base of chip designers trained within the city. We have the largest number of developers, both trained and working within the city. So there is an incredibly energetic and completely trained pool of people who are now stepping out to form these companies. We also have in the previous thing, the chief secretary talked about all of the different GCCs that are also entering the country, entering the city in particular, with about 25 to nearly 30% of most of GCCs in the country that are being erected now being in Bangalore. We're thinking about, again, extremely large swaths of incredibly talented and well-trained and equipped people who are capable of starting technology startups across different sectors. Now, with what you said, we're seeing some very unusual offshoots over the last 5 years come from this incredibly trained base
Okay.
across the board. Of course, we're seeing phenomenal entrepreneurs step up to do their second or third ventures who graduate from other startups that they have either helped found or helped build to great scale. So we're seeing a different maturity of founder also come to the forefront. But we're seeing really fantastic growth in sectors like across deep tech. So within hardware, within semiconductor, both manufacturing and chip design. We're seeing some really new, interesting models emerge there. And in manufacturing in particular, we're seeing incredible, almost capex light B2B plays that are helping truly formalize manufacturing from India to the world across sectors, by the way. This is pharmaceuticals and specialty chemicals, all the way to aviation, civil aviation manufacturing, all the way to defense manufacturing. We're looking at electrical grids and what renewable grids will demand and how you think about infrastructure built for that from India for the world. So these are some really exciting startups that actually we've had the pleasure of investing out of our most recent fund. We have Simplify in specialty chemicals manufacturing. We have a recent one that's still unannounced from within the energy grid space. We've done stuff in apparel manufacturing, et cetera. So we're extremely bullish about the future of production in India and how that's being driven through innovation out of Bangalore.
That's incredible. So I'd like to bring you in here. When you, what Nritya mentioned earlier about deep tech, right? And you've been a founder, and now, of course, you're an investor. In the past, through reporting, we've come to understand that investors are slightly unsure about investing in first-time deep tech founders, right? There's a bit of, one is scared. It's always easier to bet on second, third-time founders. In your opinion, has that been the case? Is that changing? How is that sector evolving, particularly with deep tech?
Significantly changing.
Okay.
I don't think VCs today are worried about the pedigree of the founders. What do they bring to the table? I mean, if you look at the number of deep tech companies that have been incubated at either IISc or IIT Chennai or Sign in Bombay, and look at them, they're all first-time founders. But I think the more important thing is what is the problem they're trying to solve. Most founders are trying to solve problems which are interdisciplinary in nature. Now, look back a couple of years back, we are known as a software country, right? Everything was only about software. Now, interdisciplinary at the lowest level can be hardware plus software together. But obviously, it's moved beyond that. VCs are more comfortable in investing, whether it's in a drone company or a semiconductor manufacturing company or these kind of startups. But it's gone beyond that as well. For example, there are fantastic startups where they're combining optics, artificial intelligence, software, and AI on the edge. So I think interdisciplinary is the focus of a lot of startups today. And most of them are very young first-time founders. I think that hesitancy that used to be there some time back has gone. Having said that, I think VCs also are realizing that the kind of help that they have to give to these founders goes beyond money.
Yes.
And depending on the kind of founders, you need to adjust yourself to be able to give the right kind of help to be able to make them successful. The most important thing we keep telling people is after you invest, you are on the same side of the table. We can't succeed if they don't succeed.
Yes.
As simple as that.
Absolutely. Any anecdotes that you'd like to draw from your time building Mindtree to say, the younger founders today?
Oh, the world has changed a lot. The world has changed a lot in so many years. But I think every day I pinch myself and ask myself, what were you doing at their age? The sheer audacity of the ideas that people
Yes.
come up with, really, I pinch myself and ask myself, what were you doing at their age? So I think we are in a good shape in terms of ideas and people, the problems that they're trying to solve. Now, our job as an ecosystem player, as one of the ecosystem players, is to help them to become successful.
Yes.
So I think it's not about the idea. It's how do you make it into a product? How do you commercialize it? How do you price it correctly? How do you market it correctly? And how do you sell it to the world?
Absolutely.
And I think there are many, many, many stages in that whole process.
Yeah.
And I think our job is to help them to wade through all the different challenges that they face in every stage of the journey.
Absolutely. Right, sir. Thank you for that. Rohit, this one's for you. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges that startups face, especially when they move from a seed to the growth stage? And what is the role that investors play in this in helping them bridge this gap?
I think one is I think some of them continue to be disillusioned on what people continue to look for in terms of growth and scalable growth, right? I
Okay.
think see at seed it's largely indexing upon the founder's ability to deliver on the vision. And as you grow through stages, some of this has to result in meaningful metrics which can be measured, right? Yes, there is a fair amount of influence still lying on the individuals or the group of individuals who are still building the company. But I think the metrics need to start showing that they are building scalable businesses, right? So I think at least for us, the way we kind of look at it is beyond just quantifying it as seed stage, growth stage, and such. We actually look at what is the stage of the company? Are they becoming sustainable? Are they becoming growth leaders? Are they becoming sector leaders, right? I think people have to aim towards some of those, and capital is just another thing that they have to notch up. If they start vying only for capital, then these things become very difficult.
Interesting. Anything you'd like to add, sir?
Absolutely right. I think capital is just really one of the ingredients that is required. But I think since most of the founders are very technical founders, they come from the technical background.
Yes.
And if they're especially first-time founders, they've never worked in an organization, the gaps are very high in terms of the many other things they have to put in place. Starting from an organization structure, putting a sales and marketing team, and
Yes.
how do you price it, how do you position it correctly? I think they require a lot of help. And I think slowly that talent for some time was not even available, the right kind of talent. Now slowly that kind of talent is available. And I think getting the right kind of talent to these technical founders, I think will become very crucial in helping them to be able to go to the
I
next
just want
step.
to add that one of the
Sure.
other things also, which as founders building where you're largely looking internally, right? You kind of also miss what's the macros through which growth investors are also looking to deploy capital in. It becomes
Right.
very important. So
Yes.
quite often we've seen great businesses doing fantastic things, but there's generally no interest for someone to come in and deploy capital, right? For no fault
Right.
of those founders.
Yeah.
So I think as VCs, we should also kind of help them bring that collective experience to start thinking about what's the right time. How do you
Yeah.
then conserve for an extended runway, or make sure the best form of capital is the one the consumer wants to pay for, right? How do you kind of channelize more of that? So some of these collective experience sharing, I think, becomes a crucial, let's say, reinforcement for
Right.
how, as investors, we can actually help our founders grow.
Yes, I'd like to throw in a different perspective here, where we've seen cases where too much capital has been invested too early on, which as one has seen, often distorts business fundamentals. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but how do you kind of spot and prevent overcapitalization, and what's your sort of role in maintaining that discipline? Ritya, I'd like to address this to you.
I think we're coming out of 2 or 3 years where too much capital has definitely not been the problem. Well, the reverse is.
But I'm sure there's certain companies that constantly have been. I mean, I'm
Yes,
sure
there has
we're-
definitely been a consolidation of
Yes,
capital over the
yes.
last 2 years. So when you look at large numbers, it seems like the market is recovering, but it's actually
Correct.
very large pools of capital going to a few similar concentrated places.
Absolutely.
And that's typically what happens in down cycles as well. But to your point about overcapitalization, I think across the board, across our portfolio, one of the biggest things, it seems very obvious, but one of the biggest exercises we run is true capital need, right? To either hit profitability, whatever that next milestone is before which you're able to go out, maybe into the market, you've proven enough and you're okay taking a certain amount of dilution again. So that actually is a surprising equation that not a lot of founders or others do. So then you get caught up in the vagaries of the market, right? So which is, if there's someone who's standing by the side to give you like $100 million, like at a certain thing, you'll take it. So I think being very, very clear about what your true capital need is to get to very specific goals is very necessary. But the contrary is also true, that in consumer startups in particular, it is a game of capturing the market, right? Like, and really changing fundamental consumer behavior. And that does require extremely high levels of capital. We asked, by the way, in the last 2 years, several startups have proven me wrong. That can also be done extremely efficiently. So maybe we need to relook at those playbooks as well. But the truth is that some of that consolidation into consumer tech startups is in that way justified. That sometimes capturing very large markets does require a significant amount of capital behind it. But I think coming through the last 2 years, it is not just on top of every mind, but it's been embedded into the DNA of a lot of companies, maybe a little too late for some, that you have to have extremely sustainable growth. So really keeping your eye focused on every new venture that you launch, within your new business that you launch, is grounded in fundamentals and capturing that opportunity. Or if you have a very large base of customers, how are you cross-selling new products to them, or launching things that can double your, deepen, sort of the take, as they say, from each consumer, right? So I think the short answer to it is, you're right. There was significant overcapitalization in 2021. The companies that played it really right, and the boards that were able to steer them through it, were the ones who were able to rein in and build discipline and make that money last a really long time. So we're seeing a lot of really phenomenal assets come to market this year, who have spent the last 2 and 3 years just building extremely robust businesses under the hood. So in that way, they did shore up capital when it was available, and that was a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I can add to
Of course.
this, I think it's also a maturity of the startup ecosystem in India.
Okay.
I think it's matured. Every year it's maturing. It's becoming better than what it was in the
Absolutely.
past. Even today, there are examples on both sides. Some people come and say, I want to raise $20 million. Why? Because my competitor raised $20 million.
Oh,
Not
really?
necessarily that I need $20 million or not. On the other hand, there are very, very frugal people saying, I want to raise only the money that is required right now. And I think there are all shades exist today. But I think definitely it shows the maturity of the ecosystem, the maturity of the founders who are coming into the market and talking to us. Having said that, I think because of this sudden shift in towards deep tech, more manufacturing, the capital requirements have changed a little bit.
Right.
The dynamics have changed a little bit. And we have to be mindful of that as well. One of the bigger concerns, since we talked about deep tech, is that there is not enough of late stage investors in deep tech. And I think as an ecosystem that has to develop as well. Today, in early stage and Series A stuff, there are a lot of VCs investing in deep tech companies. But the question comes up at a later stage, they need to raise lot more capital. Are there enough investors in that stage? So at all stages of the journey of the company, we need investors to back them up. And that's something which we are worried about at this point of time. Hopefully, as the ecosystem matures, that gap will also get filled.
Interesting. When you talk about the startup ecosystem having evolved, are founders also evolving in terms of their mindset? At one point, everyone was just boasting about that unicorn status. Valuation was pretty much everything. But that forever debate around valuation versus profitability, are founders, now kind of focusing a lot more on value and profitability as opposed to valuation in your experience?
I think founders comes in all shapes, sizes, and I think there are some, in the early days, I remember in the 90s, there used to be a lot of startups that used to come and you ask them, what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? I want to get acquired by Cisco. Because all the networking companies, everybody wants acquired by Cisco.
Wow.
I think some people have the mindset to build a company for a longer period of time, to build a very sustainable business. I think we also are, all of us have to blame because we have given too much of importance to valuation or not value that you're building. I think we should start projecting startups which reach $50 million in revenues. I don't care about the valuation. Is there $100 million in revenues? I think we are yet to see that kind of companies. We see few, far and few in between.
I agree.
But I think we should start projecting what is the size of the business and how sustainable that business is that they're building. There will always be founders who are saying, let me build it and sell it off. and go to south of Spain or somewhere. So
I do
It
want
is-
to do the flip side of valuation,
Sure.
right? So, yes, that is a thing that we talk about and brag about, etc. But the thing that folks have become really sensitive, and rightfully so, is founder stake dilution. So,
Yeah.
what a great valuation gives you is also lower dilution on your founder stake. So, I think as an ecosystem, we need to be having deeper conversations on like how much of founder dilution we're willing to impose, because in several companies that I know, the stakes that founders own in their own companies is down to the lower single digits. And that is genuinely terrifying. At that point, you can't even, the incentives cannot be aligned, right? Like you're just putting them into a bad position. So I think as investors, that's the other thing. That's the flip side, that while we
Absolutely.
talk about all of this stuff about valuation, I think my advice over the last few years to my founders has been, let's be dilution sensitive.
Yes.
Right? Let's think about this in a really structured way, not about what our target, that you hit 100 million valuation or not, right? Like, or like 500. Let's do
I
the
just wanna-
math
just
differently. It's
wanna
the same math, but it's
Yeah,
different.
yeah,
Just
fair
want to
enough.
add to
Sure.
what
Yes.
both of them did share. I think what we are at least seeing is the quality of conversations today with founders, right? You will see that there is a genuine need from their end also to actually hit sustainable metrics sooner than later, right? And that also means that the way they're thinking about how they're setting it up, actively looking at dilution. So one of the things that we actually talk to them about is to say that here's a valuation or a dilution index in terms of, because on your earlier question on a
Yeah.
seed to Series A,
Yes.
how should this look like? How much founder skin in the game is required at every single stage? How do you kind of get there, right? So founders are actually very aware of these discussions now, right? Over the last few years, we've seen this growing leaps and bounds. You don't have to kind of convince them. People are actually very understanding of this, right? And of course, at the end of it, if there is a great outcome from a wealth creation point of view, obviously all of this matters, right? But I think people are now also aware of the fact that if, let's say, one of the milestones is you either get acquired or you go public, right? When you go public, I think people have already seen that if you are not great on your fundamentals, you get beaten up, right? And at that point, to actually make a lot of changes is very tough, right? Because the size of the company, to all the moving parts in place, it's very difficult. So if you have those fundamental building blocks correct, it makes it very easy. And people are now increasingly aware and building towards making this work well.
Very, very interesting. Another point, Rohit, that I'd like to bring about here is one is deep tech, which is a big pain point in terms of patient capital and all of that, and I'll get to that in just a bit. But before that, another big issue is impact-led startups, right? As investors, of course, you would want returns and all of that, but how do you sort of balance financial returns with long-term impact, especially in sectors like healthcare, education, climate, etc.?
Look, I think by virtue of what people are building in some of these sectors, they're actually making an impact, right? So
Right.
impact is not from the sense of saying that I don't care about a return. I think that's a different pool of investors. Obviously, all of us have fiduciary responsibility to our investors, and hence we can't go about with the false notion of we do impact investing. But I think India is also at a stage where a lot of these things, like for example, if you cut down investing into brass tacks of, okay, have you generally helped improve per capita income? Have you been able to improve livelihood? Have you been able to improve employment overall, right? There are so many of these places that you can actually showcase, and you will see that not just in these sectors, across all these sectors, you will actually see from a financial inclusiveness, awareness of information and access, you will see that there's a huge impact being created. My only, what I keep talking to founders as well is helping them understand the timelines with which investors come in with their capital, right? I think this is the biggest sort of myth that people need to collectively kind of bust out. It's not something as VCs we actually actively talk about.
Yes.
Impact sectors are something which possibly takes a lot longer to be able to kind of appreciate and give you that sort of a return, right?
Right.
And I don't think in India we are there yet, because we're still looking at government to kind of push some of the impact policies and such, right?
Okay.
For everything else, all of us operate on a finite timeline in terms of, hey, when is our point of entry, when is our point of exit?
Okay.
And even in sectors like health, it becomes very difficult. In deep tech, it becomes very difficult. If you don't have great follow-on investors who understand and appreciate and are looking to take the next leg of the relay on, you are looking at extended runways for some of these guys who are actually building a very good premise, right? And that becomes complicated again, right? So I think as an ecosystem, it's important to understand And I think if today an investor comes and asks me, are your investments making an impact? Absolutely yes, right? So
Yeah.
that's the problem.
I think one thing we
Sure.
flipped at 314, so very early on, we signed up on the UNPRI and the ESG frameworks, et cetera, and we realized some of this was, however, especially on the ESG front, a lot of stuff that was slapped on a little bit later as a scorecard.
Okay.
And what we went in and did, and this was, again, I'll tell you why we did this, right? We went in and built stage-specific scorecards of how companies could track what they were already really doing great on, set their own internal goals, and then work towards it, right? Like there are some companies, say, even in manufacturing, do you have more gender representation on the manufacturing floor? Like it's a completely underrepresented sector, very large pool of employable talent that you should be tapping into, and how do we help you make that happen? So we've realized that when founders are building really fast and that they're building really impactful stuff, it doesn't take much more than just reporting and studying the numbers to actually make an even deeper impact. So I think one of the first things we started helping them put in place was just measure everything that you're doing. That's really great. And then you start seeing them take on these goals because they realize it's actually not that far off for them to be able to hit everything from sustainable packaging to, like I said, employability, gender diversity, like all of the different SDGs that are relevant to them in a very deep way. So as an almost byproduct of building in India, you are causing impact. You have the ability to cause impact regardless of which sector that you're operating in.
Right.
All of us, we're a growing country. We require not just employment, we require brand new ways of thinking about like sustainable measures of across sectors, etc. So you will cause impact. Now, how much further can you take it? How can you sort of improve on those metrics? Does that matter to you? Yes, and by the way, it does matter to future incoming investors, even if they're
Yes.
not impact funds.
Yeah.
On the ESG bit, the governance part is extremely high, to the point that he made, like every company wants to go. In India, the ambition is to go public.
Yeah.
The public sector governance levels in our country we need to be very proud of, some of the strictest in the world.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't happen overnight. You need to have built some of the frameworks and foundations for that very early on. And that requires, again, capturing data, reporting, measuring, make sure you're building this company the right way from the get-go. So I think that's the thing, like for us as investors to build stage-specific frameworks for the stuff that will matter 10 years down the line is extremely important, especially for us in the early stage.
Absolutely.
I
Yes, sir,
I
you were
think
saying.
absolutely, totally agree with you on both on the governance part as well as on the impact part. But I think some sectors are much more amenable to impact.
Okay. Can you
To
give
make
us
a
an
larger
example?
impact. For example, you work on anything to do with water, anything to
Yeah.
do with air quality, or anything to do with soil contamination, reducing soil contamination. I think if you look at any of these sectors where the impact is much more visible, uh, I think we need some policy nudges as well. If the policy nudges don't happen, I think it becomes that much more difficult, including in the health part. For example, I mean, the reason why we have stayed away from health for a long time, health products, because of exactly the fund duration, the time that's available for us to get in and get out. And if the adoption cycles are much longer, then it becomes that much more difficult. So I think those kind of places, some kind of policy push actually makes a big difference. On the governance part, I completely agree with you, because one of the biggest surprises for us running a company and coming into the startup world is actually in the lack of governance. The point you made, I mean, listed companies operate at a very different level of governance, and I think it's our job to educate people. And I think people are just scared of governance. I mean, we've been talking to founders and say, why are you guys so scared of governance? And I think we realize it's 2, 3 simple reasons. One, they don't know it, so they're scared of it. And they don't know it because they're techie guys. Most of them are technical people. Second, they generally have this feeling governance means delays things, right? They have this mindset. And I think governance is almost like, like putting a plumbing in a house. You can't build the house and say, after that, I'll put plumbing, right? So you have to build it in the way you operate and run the organization. And I think inculcating that you can be a $500,000 company, but governance has to be in place at that time. And that's what helps you to build a sustainable company over a long period of time. And that is actually making a big impact, especially on the ESG part, because G is very important there.
Yeah. Most definitely. Um, and when we talk about these impact-led startups, I'd like to go back to Bharat, right? That's another big area where it's a very different ball game to be building for Bharat and startups that come from there. Um, Tell us a little about what is the kind of work that's happening there, and how different are the challenges for those startups?
I think it's an incredibly massive opportunity that I think we've ignored as an ecosystem for too long. India, at 314, very early we started investing in companies that were addressing this particular consumer across tier 2, tier 3, even all the way to the rural consumer, because everywhere we saw sort of mobility from, by the way, we've had incredible progress on like removing poverty, right, in India. And there is a
Yes.
massive migration that is happening in very, very large numbers to the upper classes. So whether the lower middle class to the upper middle class, all the lower, sort of classes all the way to the middle class, etc. So that migration is not followed with designed products for that entire sector. So for instance, I'll give you an example. In most of middle India, as we call it, which is like tier 2, tier 3 cities even, there is actually quite a bit of income, discretionary income available, because your cost of living is also relatively low. You have government employed, salaried individuals, etc., working out of here. But to date, we don't have a fintech that has really penetrated all the way there. So your highest quality financial interaction is an SBI branch in your city, hopefully, right? Like, and most of banking is still very branch led,
Yes.
and the obviously the bank is that has got the deepest penetration into the rest of India is SBI. So you don't have access to wealth products now. Of course, like Grow has done a phenomenal job of bringing a
Yes.
completely different consumer on board, experiencing wealth digitally for the very first time. So we've got again wealth. There is demand for even different types of loan products. There's different type of micro insurance products. So even how you think about like insurance against dengue or chikungunya or specific diseases that are very regional. Nobody's really put in the thought to like design those products. And these are also not consumers that you will get by blasting all over social media, right? Like you have to seek them out. You have to build the channels even for that. So we realize on getting to them, on the distribution to them, on the type of product to them, on all of those lines, there was innovation to be had. So we invested across, like, for instance, you guys recently wrote about a company of ours, Kuku FM, which has just reached
Yes.
$120 million in annual revenue, exclusively building for India and not urban India, right? $120 million, a content company in this country, all subscription based, that kind of a company can be built in the span of 4 years. It's not a very long time to build something like that, right? So we've got, again, companies in content. We have a company called WeRise that is doing exactly this, differentiated financial products for middle India. How do we bring them? We have a company called Rosanna that does rural distribution, and the stories that they have to tell about the aspiration of the rural consumer on things like different forms of footwear, or in the villages of UP, the sort of curiosity and want to test out idli and dosa, right? And they've had an incredible number of orders on just idli utensils and dosa batter and things like that in like Rai Bareli and across the across Uttar Pradesh. So it's like, it's really incredible to see that we shouldn't underestimate this consumer.
Yes.
We just have built wrong for them up until now.
That's true.
So the way we reach them, the types of products we offer to them have all got to differentiate, and these are all opportunities.
Right.
Just want to add that I think a couple of things which are amazing about our large population base, which is spread across, right? One is obviously the penetration of internet, right? We
Yes.
just don't give it enough credit. We're the world's second cheapest access to internet, only after Israel, I'm told. That has huge implications, right? I think in most other places, the information asymmetry itself is a cause for how do you kind of uplift on this particular aspect of saying, what more can you do, right? So that has been an amazing game changer. And the other beautiful part is inherently, I think if you go to tier 2, tier 3, all of that, right, you will only see entrepreneurs, right? It's the lens with which you see to say that only if you're building in tech or something is to actually be called an entrepreneur, or are you actually building something where you are funding your own cash flows, building your own business, taking back cash home, right? It's not celebrated enough. So it's only about providing some of these tools and tips and tricks and trade, right? Which I actually feel that the Bharat or India too, or whatever else we may call it, I think the ability for it to leapfrog will probably be faster than some of the urban cities, because they don't have the other sort of inhibitions, which possibly, like in the previous discussion that we had, all the things that's plaguing, right? You possibly have better life, work-life balance, you have more peace with you, but it's actually wonderful if all of us were provided with that. How much more productive would we have become, right? So I think it's just a matter of time. We'll see amazing things happening.
So I just did want to add one
Sure.
point. I think you talked about entrepreneurs in Deep Bharat, right? I think one of the impact investors has published this report called Entrepreneurial Households. So
Okay.
if you look at number of entrepreneurial households that are there in the interiors of India, it's a phenomenal number. They're yet to be discovered. They don't have access to credit. And they are very reliable people to give credit to. So I think if
Yes.
there's a match done between the entrepreneurial households which are there and people who have the money to be able to give credit to them, I think you will see much more dramatic changes. Just switching, and we don't invest. We only invest in B2B companies, so I don't
Yes.
understand B2C as much. But I think even there, if you look at it, I think there's a slight shift that is happening. But I think it takes a little bit while for them to understand it. Take water, for example. I mean, we all know that industries are putting out polluted water into the earth or into the streams. And I think Pollution Control Board has very good standards, but very few of them adhere to those standards because the technology didn't exist. Today, technologies exist, but it costs incrementally little higher. What we have seen is, unless the incremental cost is below 20% of what they are, nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to do the world good just because if it's 50% more expensive.
Yes.
But if it's only less than 20% more expensive, I think industries are willing to do that. The challenge is, how do you make the 20% to 10%? Then the adoption will become much higher. So I think everybody wants to do good, but it still has to be meaningful for their businesses to run.
Sure.
So I think that's a balance. We'll have to get it right. And I think with frugal innovation, I think it's possible to do.
What about, I mean, we're in a time where things are like ever evolving, right? Where I'm not talking about COVID, even post COVID, we're seeing more recent times, things are constantly changing. And as I understand that founders are very stuck in a sense to certain business models that they've started off with. Pivots are very important because things are changing very fast, right? As investors, how do you help, you know, these founders, guide them through it, or when do you kind of figure out, okay, this is a signal, maybe it's time for a pivot, things aren't working out, in any such instances? And it's open to any of you.
Oh, look, I think it's a natural course for most, right? Including myself, I don't know how many people haven't had to pivot too many times in their lives to kind of find success.
Yes.
I think as investors, now as our role as investors, I think one is to back their conviction through and through, right? Like, and Pata sir said, the minute we invest, we are on the same side of the table.
That's correct.
Quite often it's possibly to kind of show them the sort of mirror in terms of reality, in terms of saying that, while you want to do this, have you thought about some of these things, right?
Nice.
And I think it is very essential to back them. There's been so many of such use cases where people have been able to, maybe not on the primary business side of things, but there are so many things which are ancillary to the business. Someone started with lean manufacturing, for example, but had the opportunity to pick up an infra which would help them scale faster. Someone who had like zero inventory model suddenly decided that to fulfill the customer needs, they need to kind of bring about possibly a middle ground sort of opportunity where they will fulfill, but the vendors come and partake in terms of inventory hold. So people have continuously kind of innovated, right? Hard pivots, I don't know if I've seen too many of those working. Pivot during natural course, I think it's every day and every now.
One last question to all of you. I'm going to keep it very straightforward. What is some advice that you guys would like to give founders that are looking to build enduring companies out of Bangalore? Partha sir, I'd like to start with you.
So I talk specifically about B2B. I think
Sure.
big problems which are big problems for the enterprises. Don't look at AI as a lipstick you can put on top. AI has to be the core at which you build solutions. If you don't do that today, you will get disrupted very quickly. So I think people have to start rethinking in terms of how they build solutions, both hardware and software. That's number one. Number two is actually, I am a big fan of interdisciplinary. The world is going to be very interdisciplinary. That's the place where you'll have the maximum problems, and that is an opportunity for every founder to look at.
Great. Nritya, what about you?
Deeply invest in relationships with those who have done this before. And I don't mean like 5 years before. I mean the ones who have built the most enduring companies in the country. They are extremely open to engage with young entrepreneurs. And there is a side of the world and a viewpoint of the market, etc. That's a perspective that you can never get in any other way. I think there is this disconnect. We keep trying to build like the Silicon Valley, which is we're the ones crushing the incumbents, etc. No, they've done something that in a much harder India, they've navigated and built the kind of enduring companies that they have. There's an immense amount, not just to learn, but they're also extremely excited to engage with you because they want to innovate themselves. So I think that's a relationship that is missing and should be much stronger.
What about you, Roy?
I would say, I mean, basic thing is treat capital as a catalyst and not as the business model. Second is, I think, look, fundamentals compound, right? So
Yes.
that's as simple as you get. There's no time as starting early. So the sooner you can start, believe in the fundamentals, and they'll continue to compound over time.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. I think this is a wonderful conversation. Thank you all.
Thank you all very much. And, it's great that we got this mix of panelists. So we have Nupur and Arun, who already run established companies, Tally, Wandala, Rahul Rawat, who's a co-founder of Digantra. Completely different. It's a space tech startup that's focused on navigation platform for space. Nischay of Jar, who wants to help us all save more money and is also making money. Chaitanya, who wants to make you spend that money to buy mattresses. What are the sofas and furniture? He's also going for an IPO, so maybe both of you can give him tips. And Rohit of Seekho, who's building a learning platform. Again, a very hot startup that's benefiting from UPI autopay and the whole push for online learning. Thank you all very much for joining us. Um, if you can begin with opening comments, perhaps Arun, Nupur, how you see yourselves as a founder based in Bangalore, building in Bangalore, what makes it special? What are the network effects that makes the city special when it comes to entrepreneurship and starting up? I mean, Delhi can claim to be the startup capital, but we know which is the true startup capital in the country. Who wants to go first? Nupur, why don't you do the honors?
So my perspective about Bangalore, so I've been born and brought up in Bangalore. Tally is actually a family-owned business. It was started by my grandfather. And the origins of Tally began when my family had come down, as we are a Marwari family. We came down and my grandfather started a bobbins factory. They basically make machine parts for textile manufacturers. And they were looking at some point, it was a very, for the lack of a better way to put it, a very sick industry. They were perpetually in very, very heavy debt. And they were looking to automate, they were looking for software, which eventually my father built, Tally. The factory one day burned down, and when they walked into the ashes that were left, as legend goes, the only thing that was left in the factory was the laptop that contained the Tally EXE.
Wow.
And
That's
over the
quite a
last
story.
yeah, over the last 40 years now, we are blessed to have around 70 to 80% of the market. But one of the biggest blessings of being in a city like Bangalore, I believe, in my personal opinion, is the talent. While we hire from across the world, while we hire across India, one of the biggest pulls of people really coming here is the energy, the passion, and the talent inside the city when it comes to, for our heart and soul, as great engineers.
But that's such an amazing story. I mean, the entire factory burns down. There's just a laptop left in the ashes. And that becomes the foundation of, a generational company. Tally, I don't think any accountant can get away with saying, I can't, I mean, I don't use Tally or I don't know Tally. So that's quite the story. Arun?
I have been in Bangalore for pretty much all my adult life, although originally from Cochin. Similar story to the Tally story in the sense that the company was founded in Cochin. Our company was actually incubated in Cochin, but it grew based out of Bangalore. And initially, we were, the amusement park that we built was not very, I wouldn't say very high tech or anything like that. It was aimed at a very, we were new into the business and we were trying to build an amusement park in a country where there were no amusement parks. But as time grew, I think we got the courage and the know-how to build our own rides, design and build our own rides. And that is where I think Bangalore helped a lot. We We currently build world-class rides with the help of suppliers from India and abroad. The latest ride that we built, we have parts made in Italy. We have the movie which was made in Los Angeles. Then we have the rest of it completely made in Bangalore. So I think Bangalore kind of comes alive because I think it's a very collaborative city. It's the kind of talent that you find in Bangalore. I think it's special, and it has definitely helped us build rides and technology-based rides, which I would have not been able to do if we were in another city. So I think that probably answers the question.
And you have a new facility now, right? Which is, I think, quite fancy.
Yeah, so that is our kind of foray into a experiential resort business as part of our what we do. We are primarily an amusement park operator. We are in 4 cities, going to be in 5 cities by the end of the year. But we also wanted to kind of see how we can differentiate our offering. Our parks now get more than 1 million visitors each. So we thought, why can't we have people come and stay over with us? We already had a resort in Bangalore, but now we thought, how can we give a more differentiated experience? And this is a thought that came to us after COVID, actually, because we thought, we found that people like to take shorter vacations more number of times in a year compared to the pre-COVID thing of having longer vacations.
One long vacation.
Yeah, so how do we kind of build a product where people can come and spend a weekend 1 hour away from Bangalore? 1.5 hour away. Bangalore traffic is always unpredictable.
2 hours away on a Wednesday
yeah, let's say 2 hours.
evening. Yeah.
So, so how do we bring an experience to people without having to worry about going far away and making a big plan? So that's how the inception of that idea came.
So, you should pitch to all the founders next offsite at your
Yes, for sure,
residential.
anytime.
Then he'll give some promoter discount or
yeah,
MD
for
discount.
sure. Everyone from Forbes Leadership Awards gets a discount.
Tell us about your story, Rahul. Again, very niche, very specialized startup. How's the space tech? And space tech has become such a hot space in India in the last few years. Bangalore has Pixel, Digantra, Hyderabad has Skyroot. What makes Bangalore special apart from the fact that there's ISRO here?
Digantra, we are a company who is building a navigational platform for space. In very simple words, what we are building is Google Maps kind of a platform, but for space. So I come from Uttarakhand. So all my life I've spent under the night sky, under the stars, and that's where I already had that interest in space. But 3 things that connect us to Bangalore is my other 2 co-founders who are from Bangalore. And the third thing is how India's journey in space also kind of started from Bangalore, right? So when we decided to start the space tech company, the first thing that we were looking for is the right set of ecosystem for us, the right set of infrastructure for us. And that's where we are looking around, where could we find this right set of ecosystem? Where could we find this right set of infrastructure to build things, right? Because as founders of a deep tech company, 2 things that you have to worry about is the right ecosystem and the right set of capital. Now, capital is a problem that you have to solve for given the place, any place you are in, but the infrastructure is one part that we found in Bangalore, and that's why we based our company in Bangalore. So that's how we started from Bangalore. Plus, in Bangalore, space tech has been booming for last so many years, about 60 years, I would say. So from the resource perspective, from the infrastructure perspective, there have been a lot of developments that have already been done. So that kind of gave us that ecosystem, that kind of gave us that environment to build upon and grow upon. So we did not have to worry much about that part of things. So because we started in Bangalore, the first thing that we had to worry about was the capital part and not the part on the infrastructure
But
side.
why worry about capital? Like, isn't there a lot of VCs are not giving you money here?
So when we started Digantra, it was early in the, or rather I would say in 2020, so in the middle of the COVID. So that time, the capital was not that much available. Plus that time in India, space sector was not as focused. It was not as much booming, right? So right after we started Digantra and we were 1 year into Digantra, that's when the privatization of the space sector happened, and that's when private companies started coming up. Until then, there were only like handful companies. There were about 5 companies operating in the space sector. So it used to be very, very difficult to go to the VCs and tell them what we are doing. And then you tell them that what you are doing is building a maps for space. You're building a navigational infrastructure for space. So the first question used to be, okay, why do you even need that, right? So that used to be the question for us. And we used to, spend a lot of time in first explaining why is it important, right? Today, we can say that space is the fourth frontier. Space is the fourth operational domain alongside land, air, and water. But about 5 years back, when we had to actually explain this statement to VC ecosystem that time, I think it was a challenging task for us. So that's where one of the part is when we had to face difficulty in raising capital. Second, we also come from tier 2, tier 3 universities, and then our background is not actually into the aerospace, right? Only a third co-founder, who's Tanveer, who's the CTO, is coming from the aerospace background. But me and Anirudh, we come from computer science background. So then when you have to tell the other person that you're building something in a sector like space, right? The first question comes to you around is also about the background, the kind of pedigree you have had to build something for that ecosystem. So that was another challenge that we had to face and solve for.
Nischay, you're a Bangalore boy.
Last 20 years in Bangalore, so I will take the liberty to call myself Bangalore boy.
How did you go about JAR, basing it here?
See, for us, when you think of engineering job, the only destination that comes to your mind is Bangalore. Post my completed my engineering, Bangalore is where I landed. This was the city which adopted us, gave us our identity, gave us our life. Plus, Bangalore is a city where money moves freely. To be very honest, because a lot of young folks out of their parents' home, finally they're earning. They give a try to every new thing. I still remember back in the days when Swiggy was still piloting their program, one of the VCs came and told them that make this work in Kormangla, it will work everywhere in the country.
Wow.
And they proved that they can do 1,000 orders a day or something like that in just in Kormangla, and that was the pilot, and that happened very fast. That's a testament to the city that it gives opportunity for new age companies, gives opportunity for testing out new products, new services, new experiences, everything. And Bangalore is a city where you're not typically judged for what you wear or how you speak. No one is bothered whether you're wearing a Louis Vuitton shoe or what it is. You're purely judged by your karma, your work, and nothing else. And that works really well for the city, is what I believe. Even when we started before JAR, I was with Bounce. I couldn't have thought of any other city where we could have launched, say, service like Bounce, dockless scooter sharing platform. And even when we were thinking of JAR, it was so easy to launch because the talent density was so good. And talent density is so good, plus it's concentrated in 3-4 areas. It's not like you have to travel to the Hebal side or the Kengeri side. It's all in Indranagar, HSR, Kormangla, BTM. There are 4-5 areas where everyone is concentrated. It became much easier. Even during COVID, we simply booked an Airbnb, locked up everyone for 3 weeks, and we built the product and launched the product.
Wow.
So Bangalore is very special for us. And we carry that even when we did the first IPL campaign, default choice was RCB. We didn't even think beyond RCB for us. So Bangalore's has a very special place for us, and the audacity of people to think or dream is also incredible. Back in the days, there was one guy who came from Zomato to Bounce. This was still COVID time. He said, "I'm planning to build something for schools. I don't know how to go about it. Can you guide me?" And he randomly dropped by to office. Like he said, "I'm working with Zomato," and we told, "What are
You
you
sent
like?"
him to Swiggy.
No. So he was trying to build a software for fees collection for schools. We guided him through. There was two good interns in our office. We asked them to help him build and all of those things. I think after 3 or 4 weeks, we asked, "What exactly you do in Zomato?" He said, "I'm a delivery boy for
Oh,
Zomato."
wow.
The audacity to
amazing.
think and to dream big and be completely unhinged to go seek help, and people are open to offer help. I think that's what makes Bangalore Bangalore.
Right. I think Nandan Nilekani once put it very well. He said Delhi is the power capital, Mumbai is the financial capital, and Bangalore is the ideas capital. And what
Uh,
you said kind of
uh,
squares with that.
yeah, I think I say this about US. Manhattan controls the world, but Sandal shapes the world. Same thing for India. Probably Delhi and Mumbai may control a lot of things, but what they have to control in the future is being built in
Shaped,
Bangalore.
built in Bangalore. That's a wonderful insight. Chaitanya,
I think our story was very similar to so many of my colleagues. Ankit and I are the two co-founders, and Ankit came from Agra. I returned from the US and Canada, and I've had a completely nomadic childhood. My dad kept getting transferred, so I've done my 16 years of education in about 10 different institutions.
wow.
And then I was again in the US and Canada, but I kept reading these newspaper articles about Flipkart, Mintra, Tally, so many things being built in Bangalore, raising funding, building bootstrap, all kinds of stories. So when I did come back to India, my parents were always in Mysore. So I said, Bangalore is close to home, so let me just continue working here. And it so happened that I met my co-founder Ankit here. He came from Agra. Very similar journeys. But this city, like Nishchay said, adopted us so much more. I've done a few years of schooling, but those were just probably a child's view of the town. But as an adult, three things I notice. I think my colleagues have spoken about supply, which is talent density, so on and so forth. Then there is demand, which is it's an amazing place to test out anything that any crazy idea that you come up with.
Did you also do this Koromangla test like he said?
No, no, we can afford to do a city level test because when you set up a supply chain network, you have to do it for a slightly larger thing to test whether it works. So the 100-day trial and so forth, Bangalore was a great test bed to start. But then the third part that is less spoken about, demand, supply. But the third part is the founder network. I think that is completely underrated because there are founders who are extroverts, there are founders who are introverts. You will not believe how accessible everyone is. You do VC ref checks, you do hiring ref checks, you do co-founder onboarding ref checks. You literally are able to brainstorm about anything.
Wow.
WhatsApp groups, Slack channels, Twitter, you reach them out on any other dimension, they will be accessible. And people are very generous. And I do the same. Whenever some unknown founder reaches out, it's an almost an obligation that you end up giving that 2 minutes to respond on WhatsApp. I don't even know how they've got my number, but they've got it. This is where I got your number. Can you
So
please
you
help me on
respond
this?
to founders. Only journalists you'll respond after 3 days,
After-
4 days.
After 3 days, but I do respond.
There was a founder from Delhi who had come down to Bangalore. We were supposed to meet in Indiranagar third wave.
One more Zomato guy.
No. So we were catching up. That was his second trip to Bangalore. We were talking, and then Kunal Shah walked in, grabbed a coffee. He
Gave
sat
him a
on the
check.
no,
Oh.
sat on the stairs, had the coffee, and walked away. And this guy was freaking out. Dude, Kunal Shah is there, and no one is doing anything. And that's what everyone is accessible, and everyone is super grounded. It's easy
Everyone's
to.
chill. And Kunal Shah will come on some Vespa scooter and
Yes, absolutely. That's what he
have
did.
his coffee.
I mean, no one disturbed him. He came. Yeah.
Rapido. Rohit?
Yeah, so unlike the most of you here, it has just been 3 years for me in Bangalore. I have spent more time in Mumbai while I was working, and then Seco's initial 2 years were in Udaipur. So
In Udaipur? That's
yes, it
interesting.
was a very different type of journey, and that is why the DNA of Seco is also very different, which shows up in things like profitability and a 50-member team building one of the largest learning platforms and things like those, because we never had the access to the network, the capital, the energy that we now have. So I think it's a very contrasting experience where the first 2 years we had a lot of constraints, and hence we could drive a lot of innovation which comes out of constraints. And then in the last 3 years, we have access to all of these things, and hence we are able to scale up much faster. So this is essentially how Bangalore fits in our journey.
And you moved to Bangalore when? A year ago or 3 years ago?
3 years ago.
And do you think, how has it helped you, build vis-a-vis building in Udaipur? For example, I think Chaitanya and Nishchay both spoke about founder networks, ref checks. hiring ref checks, VC ref checks, co-founder ref checks, all that?
So, how did it help was that, as I said, we were a lot constrained,
Hmm.
which essentially led to monetizing very early, building it with a very very lean team, and doing things which people in Bangalore might not even think of doing because there's plenty of everything. So yeah, we basically ran out of money 1.5 years into our journey. It was just a 1 month of runway that we had left. We were a free to use platform back then. We had a 9-member team, and we just put a paywall. We said, like, we don't want to raise externally, we don't care about the daily active users. We'll just put a paywall, and we made enough revenue to actually pay the salaries of our 9-member team in that month. And that is how we survived. But that in itself was like a turning point for the business. And like, it was one of the first times when a content platform would have monetized just 1.5 years into their journey. So yeah, that is essentially how Udaipur, or not in Bangalore, helped.
That's an amazing story. Um, Nupur, in terms of the bold bets that you're making today, because we're seeing so many functions getting automated by AI, right? So what bets are you making today which you believe will pay off in the coming years, or how are you preparing for this disruption? Because every function today is getting disrupted by some AI agent that can do it. So how are you sort of preparing for this?
Honestly, before I joined Tally, from the outside, despite being in the same family, of course, I always thought about Tally as the accounting software. It's only once I joined Tally that I realized at its heart, it's really a product and technology company. And like I said, not many people know this, but the current product that we have in the market, we've actually built the entire stack. So we've built everything from our own database, our own memory manager, our own math routines, even the programming language that the application is built using has been created by us, the Tally definition language. And the reason I'm giving all this background is because even today, when we look at the level of the velocity of change that we're seeing, whether it's in technology and AI, the thing I'm looking forward to the most is the level of depth we can go to in order to actually figure out how to build and create technology as opposed to just adopt it. So I think the use cases for adopting AI, the use cases for adopting any technology that is being built across the world is endless. But I think that the spark really comes to figuring out where either things are brittle and where you have an opportunity to create something really amazing, or for that matter, reinvent completely and create from scratch. And that's how we're looking at even AI, whether it's building our own models, building our own training systems, trying to figure out how to create technology that will be adopted at scales of millions across the kind of customers that we serve, rather than just being something impressive that we can demo. So that's been at a high level sort of top of mind for me.
Right. Arun, you're in a business that will benefit a lot from the experience economy, and this is something that I think resonates with the current generation. They don't want to kind of save for the next 5 generations. They want to travel. They want to spend on Coldplay. They perhaps want to spend on Bandala. How do you sort of see that panning out for you? The consumerism that you're seeing.
I think what we've seen is a change in, like I said, change in people's spending habits. I think there was this huge need for people to save and then spend on things before.
This year
That
is going to
is,
be worried. Spending habits, saving habits.
yeah, I
Huh.
think so. That has completely changed. At least that's changing from our demographic. Our target group is a very young audience, from 10 to like 20, 24. That's our pretty much our target group. So if you look at that age group, they are looking at, what can they do now, or how can my life be better now, is what they look at.
Spend
So
now, save later.
yeah, I mean, and maybe they're too young to think about saving too much. They just want to have a blast with their friends, family, all those things. At least that's the way we see it, right? So how can we kind of enable that? And what we are seeing is people are also less patient now. So your customer experience has to be on point. You need to know a lot more about your customer. You need to send him offers or things, at the right time. You should make sure that your safety and all those things are taken care of. And also people are, like I said, less patient. So how do we manage our queues, things like that? So these are all areas where we are spending a lot of effort, especially using AI and as for queue management, those kind of things, using special cameras, how to see, how do we spread people across our amusement parks or even resort? How can we make how can we help reduce queue times? So these are a lot of these some of these optimization problems that we are trying to solve. And I think this is where I think AI can play a big role. And we're already seeing some results, but still I think in a couple of years we'll see much
Right.
better results.
Rahul, in terms of how you see Digantra's fortunes unfold in the next 5 years?
So in the space sector, I mean, there's one saying that the problem statement that you have to solve for should be a problem statement for next 20 years if you
20.
actually, yeah. So if you actually want to sustain and if you actually want to stay in the deep tech and the space tech sector, you have to solve a problem that will stay as a problem for next 20 years, because building the solution can itself take you, a lot of years. Like even if you talk about SpaceX, how they actually came up with building their first rocket, right? So they had to go all in, and if not the last rocket would have succeeded, they would have actually had to close shop and
Yeah.
close the company. So that is a kind of effort, and that is a kind of thought process you have to put into things. So for us, I mean, we have already figured out what we have to solve in the next 5, 10, and 15, 20 years. I mean, from that perspective, one thing that I told you already is, for us, one vision statement that we are pretty clear on is how do we navigate humanity beyond this planet? So for whatever is required for navigating humanity beyond this planet, for example, today, if it takes building something like Google Maps kind of a platform for space, tomorrow building something on top of it, right? So that's our problem statement, that's our vision statement that we would want to solve for. Today, we are starting it with tracking objects in space. What are the different kind of objects that are there? How are they moving? What are the patterns? How can you save yourself if you're there in space from any kind of collisions? What are different kind of incidents that can happen in space? How can you have some kind of intelligent surveillance in space? So all those things is something that we are building on.
Right. And in terms of founder networks, how does that work out for the deep tech space?
I would say the deep tech founder network is a WhatsApp group. I mean, that's how close yeah, that's how close everyone is, and we don't hesitate in reaching out to anyone or learning from them, from their experiences, because again, technology is something that everyone is building on their own, but definitely experiences are something that you can take from each other and learn from that and then build on top of it. As deep tech founders, engineering hits, you will definitely be thinking about technology part of it, but how are you solving the maybe employee part of it? How are you solving the finance part of it? How are you solving the HR part of it? So there are a lot of other things that you never think about when, as an engineer, you start a startup, right? And only when you start the journey, when the teams, starts growing bigger and bigger, that's when you realize that, okay, there are 100 other things that you actually have to solve for. So that's when you can definitely leverage from that founder network, which definitely provides you a lot of insights and experiences.
Right. Rohit, when I spoke to you earlier, I said, would you define Seco as an edtech? And you said, no, we are a content platform. Is edtech still a dicey word to use in the Indian startup ecosystem?
Um, I would be worried maybe 3 years back to use or to classify myself as a tech. Now, not so much, but still, tech gives you that feel that you would be running courses and you'll be charging lakhs of rupees for those courses, which is something we are not really doing. So that is why I want to stay away from, being classifying myself as an edtech, because we are a platform for the masses. And this country has not really seen an edtech for the masses yet. Had not seen before Seco. So yeah, that's why I would not call myself edtech. But otherwise, I think there are, like, people are doing great things in edtech, and there's no reason why edtech should be a curse word.
Okay. But when you say learning platform for the masses, all of them will be willing to pay for this?
Yeah, so the purpose of Seco is, just defined as to make learning fun and easy for everyone. And the the end goal is to basically build a go-to learning platform for anyone who wants to learn anything, which essentially you can think about it as a much better, easier, and fun alternate of learning from YouTube.
What's the most popular course on Seek?
So there, it the good thing about Seco is that there's no 80-20. There's no two or three categories which are driving 80% of our traffic. You'll see things like English speaking, growing a business, growing on YouTube or Instagram. However, the most interesting category would be, things like how to update your Aadhaar card.
But why can't people just Google that or go to YouTube? Why do they have to pay you to know how to update Aadhaar?
Because they don't really trust what's there on YouTube, and YouTube has problems like, there are unnecessarily long videos, and then you have to search and you'll see thousands of videos and you don't know which one you can trust or which one to watch. People don't want to spend so much time and energy into learning. Learning is anyway difficult, and YouTube makes you spend even more time to just find the right thing to learn, and people are like, cool, meko karna hi nahi hai. But when it comes to
Like
Seco,
Arun said, people are very impatient. They want
yeah,
something immediately.
definitely. And when it comes to learning, which is such a difficult thing, that impatience just becomes 10x. So it becomes extremely important to make learning, as I said, fun and easy for everyone.
So how to update Aadhaar is one of your most popular.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. What's the second most? How to link Aadhaar to PAN?
Uh, yeah, so all of that we put under a category called digital services, which also includes, by the way, all sorts of government schemes. So yeah, all of that comes under the digital
How to get
services.
PF from EPFO?
Yeah, that, and then there are a lot of yojanas out there which people learn a lot about.
Right. Chaitanya, he spoke about building a learning platform for masses, content platform,
Yeah, that's great.
both fun and easy. Um, in your own business, you're trying to solve hard problems of sleep. You've expanded to furniture, furnishing. Do you see Wakefit expanding beyond that 30 million, 40 million catchment? Do you see it becoming a mass product? I mean, what's the next step of the journey going to be? I know you can't reveal too much because you're in that silent DRHP period, but whatever you can in terms of the broad vision.
See, I've always felt that operating in all these press reports about companies operating in 400 cities, serving X million customers, all of that is probably in the bucket of vanity metrics. You really can build. We are last year we ended at about some 1280 crore in revenue, and you can build it in about 30-40 cities.
Hmm.
You do it very well.
You don't have to spray and pray.
Yeah, because there is enough and more depth in each of those cities. There's enough and more interested consumers in each of those cities. Just because it is becoming harder to acquire and retain in one city, the answer is not to just keep expanding. So, for a consumer products company like ours, growth only comes from two or three dimensions: expand your geographies, expand your products, or expand your channels. So when you take up these three dimensions multiplied by four categories that we operate in, it becomes harder and harder the more complexity you want to add. So all you have to do is you pick up one category, add two, three subsegments. All you have to do is add another 5 cities in a whole year. All you have to do is open one channel in one more year. That can give you another 500 crore of revenue. Because in India, gone are the days where you could get product market fit for your category, enjoy the benefits of it for 3 to 4 years. That is just not existent. Every 18 months, you have to do product market fit expansion by either of these three dimensions. So, given this, when there's so much to do already, to then say that I operate in 400 cities, 50 categories, that is just a vanity metric. If you drill down, you'll not have too much meat in any of those. So for us, long answer to your short question, it is we want to be in the home space. We want to be predominantly India. We Some products are pan India, some products are about 35 cities. We are happy doing this steadily, boringly, because I think both Ankit and I are middle class founders. Failed twice for me, once for him. We're very happy building it like this. Happy giving ESOPs, happy liquidating ESOPs for our employees. Just this very standard stuff.
Great. Wishing you the best for your IPO as well. But Nishchay, Arun made an interesting point about spending habits. How would you come up with saving habits for a generation that just wants to live in the moment?
Savings is really a tough problem. It's nothing to do with money. Uh, See, it's savings is kind of visible, but a lot of other things go through same challenges. Education is one thing. Being spiritual or religious is another thing. Be it good at your job is another thing. So money is something which is visible. The problem is across. The problem is that people don't crash into habits; they slide into habits. So how do you build the easiest ramp for anyone to slide into savings habit? Is what the game changer is. How do you make it fun, make it friction free, and make it non-judgmental? Uh, the problem with the existing financial services was it was heavily in English, filled with jargons which alienate 99% of the population, and it dumped complex products which common man can't comprehend. So we figured out if you simply simplify this, people will save. People don't have any reservation, and we are not telling that only save, don't have fun. We are telling save while you have fun. So the first basic product that we offered was roundups. Every time when you are spending, save a little bit. That's all. And we also figured out that if you build cultural context to it, and if you localize it, we offer the product in 11 languages. And lately we started using AI also to deliver personalized service across multiple languages, even in the onboarding journey itself. So it's all about behavioral things. How do you uh, crack the dopamine pathways to make savings fun? How do you celebrate milestones? No one celebrates any milestones. I mean, everyone goes through a tough life. No one says takes a moment. No platform or no company takes a moment to say you're doing good job. So that's what we do. I mean, we are more like a buddy than a parent or a teacher or a headmaster. We are just there. Be a silent partner in your savings journey. That's how we are able to crack.
And you've been successful in cracking that. So
Yes, we have now we have users across 12,000 pin codes. We are
he spoke about fewer pin codes. You have kind of
yeah we are a mass market product. We have users in the last village of Kashmir to the last village of Andaman Nicobar. Uh, when it comes to UPI autopay, we are probably clocking 1 in 4 transactions in the country. Uh, the largest.
other three must be Sikho, no?
We are far ahead of the next players like uh, Bharat Bill Pay, Netflix, Prime, Hotstar, everyone, from a number of mandates, number of transactions, and all of those things. But we have learned a lot. What we figured out is building the journey. Uh, uh, we have mastered the art of rationalizing of why I will not do something. Savings, oh, I will earn more money. That's why I will not save now. Oh, one single sheet of paper will not decide my future. That's why I will not study for exam. I am an atheist. I don't believe in all. It's just because you're lazy. You don't have the discipline to wake up early in the morning, take bath, and do 1 minute of prayer or whatever it is required. You are not disciplined enough to study for the exam. You are not disciplined enough to postpone your gratification to save a little bit today. So we come up with 100 different, like, oh, I will not have kids. Oh, I will not get married. You will find 100 different reasons to justify your laziness. And we just figured
Nischay
out.
not holding back at all.
Oh, no, everyone asks who's your biggest competition. I say inertia.
Yeah.
No one else. It's people's inertia is the biggest competition that you are fighting with. You need to build simpler ramps where it makes it fun, makes it okay to start the journey. And that's what we capture the intent for. Everyone will have flash of intent. That's the day you go sign up for gym. Uh, you don't turn up.
On January 1st.
Huh?
On Jan
Absolutely.
1st, on
So
Jan
it's all about capturing that intent for a moment and convert it to a lifelong action without any friction, without any effort. That's where we come in and make sure that we will be a silent partner in your savings journey.
I hope that pitch worked. But but just winding up with the last round of comments. Nupur, what is your goal or mission statement going to be for the next 1 year? What are you excited about? What are you going to focus on?
Uh, Actually, the last time we spoke, I said something very similar. So it's still the same for me. I'm very bullish about the entire story of made in India, made for the world. I believe a
Made in
lot.
Bangalore, made for the world.
Made in Bangalore, made for the world. Yeah, absolutely right. I think it's very, very, it's lovely to see. It's so exciting to see so many entrepreneurs now focusing more on building technology rather than using technology. That wasn't the case for a very, very long time. I think so many people, in my view, have to Nishya's point, um, kind of fallen prey to inertia, fallen prey to wanting to build things faster, taking the easy route. Um, and it's really amazing to see people not take that path, go much more into depth. And I think that gives my conviction of made in India, made in Bangalore, made for the world much stronger.
Arun?
Yeah, no, I think India's at a very exciting stage in its growth. Uh, I think there's a lot of opportunities for all kinds of businesses. I think this panel itself is like we are all from very, very different businesses and trying to carve our path in industry, in some new industries, some disrupting old industries. But I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think we are a young country. We are getting more educated. We are getting more aspirational. We are very well connected. I think the sky is the limit. I think for any industries, that's what I really believe. Even for our industry, I think it's we are still only in 5 cities. Why not 50, right? So there's a lot of opportunity there. But of course, we have our structural issues. India is not going to be the easiest country to do business in, but it's getting better. It will. It is growing at its own pace, and I think we have a huge opportunity in front of us. In whichever industries that we are in, definitely for my industry, this is what I believe.
Rahul?
So I think space as a sector is something that now every country is trying to leave their footprints on and trying to excel in. And for India also, it is one of that sectors where it would definitely want to be the global leader. So I think for us it's made in Bangalore, made for India, made for the world, and how do we take India to the forefront of this global space race?
Right. Rohit?
One of India's greatest strengths is the population that we have. However, we are really bad at leveraging that strength. And a platform like Seco can actually empower everyone to just become a little bit more successful, which in totality can make this country maybe a superpower. So yeah, that's our goal, to just empower maybe 10x more people by making them learn things in a much easier and fun way, and eventually making India into a superpower.
Chaitanya?
I think today's Indian consumer is very aspirational and they're well traveled. And even if they're not well traveled, they have the latest trends and aesthetic designs at their fingertips through Pinterest and Instagram. And till WakeFit and other companies like ours, it was all an aspirational dream. So today, if somebody is 22 and their first job, or they're all the way up to 45, 50 and they're well settled, if they have that dream, they should be able to furnish it and bring that dream to life in an affordable, sustainable manner. That's what gets us out of bed, and that's what we are excited about.
That's what keeps you awake.
Away.
Nishchay?
We believe in financial wellness. We'll continue this journey. It's all about making people save a little, get access to credit when needed, and make sure that they're insured, so that a black swan event will happen and they don't get into debt trap or they burn their savings. That's the vision. Idea is to reach 300 million Indians, or hopefully in next 5 years.
Great. On that note, thank you all very much. That was an amazing session, and I really learned so much from it. Thank you very much for being a great audience as well. Thank you, Nupur, Arun, Rahul, Nishchay, Chaitanya, and Rohit for giving us time. Thank you.